Temptation often leads us into messy places where we hunger for that which is not good for us, where we long to exploit power at a cost to others, and where we bait God and each other. This last week, I found myself intrigued at how two completely different people from varied perspectives offer similar wisdom. Firstly, Pope Francis, from his hospital bed, sent an encouraging message to scientists and church specialists participating at a conference in Rome. Secondly, psychotherapist Owen O'Kane was interviewed about his new book, Addicted to Anxiety. O'Kane speaks about Generation Anxious in the context of war, threats, famine, political and economic instability, climate change. Pope Francis uses the term Polycrisis to evoke the dramatic nature of the historical juncture we are currently witnessing, in which wars, climate change, energy problems, epidemics, the migratory phenomenon, and technological innovation converge. The intertwining of these critical issues, which currently touch on various dimensions of life, lead us, Pope Francis argues, to ask ourselves about the destiny of the world and our understanding of it. O'Kane believes that there is a lot of generic fear and anxiety around, but it becomes problematic for people when it gets in the way of their daily life, when it gets in the way of them functioning. Owen is regarded as an expert on anxiety and trauma. He talks about growing up in Belfast and the holy trinity of shame, being Irish, Catholic and gay. He describes his story as very imperfect, very messy. It wasn't the Waltons, it was working class, no money, Catholic area, full of violence, being badly bullied. It was full of flaws and imperfections and challenges. Pope Francis believes that the first step we need to take in our troubled times is to understand our cosmos. Like Moses in the first reading from the book of Deuteronomy, he encourages us to go back to our roots. Francis argues that if we do not do this, and we do not seriously analyze our profound resistance to change, both as people and as a society, we will continue to do what we've always done with other crises, even very recent ones. He says, think of the COVID pandemic. We have, so to speak, squandered it. We could have worked more deeply in the transformation of consciences and social practices. O'Kane believes that people get addicted to the way they think. They get addicted to the thoughts because they're quite tantalizing, even though they are uncomfortable. They get addicted to the feelings. If you think about it, psychologically, the chemicals the body produces when you're anxious are very similar to the chemicals produced when you're excited. We almost become hooked on the feelings. The behavior becomes quite ritualized. Francis reasons that another important step is to avoid remaining immobile, anchored in our certainties, habits, and fears, and to listen carefully to the contribution of areas of scientific knowledge. While Owen O'Kane's book is focused on addictions, he believes it is also about hope and compassion. But it's also about saying, you have to play a big part in your recovery. Take ownership. Francis, this week, communicated 3 key messages. First, that listening to the sciences continually offers us new knowledge. Second, that technology alone cannot save us. Thirdly, that an ethic of imposing the law of the strongest as the only rule leaves people dehumanized. Helpfully, Owen O'Kane argues that good therapy is about embracing the reality of your story, never being victimized by it, never holding on to the pity narrative, but saying, okay, these were the cards I was dealt. What can I use within all of this as part of transformation? Pope Francis told the scientists that hope is the fundamental attitude that supports us on the journey. It does not consist of waiting with resignation, but of striving with zeal towards true life, which leads well beyond the narrow individual perimeter. Pope Benedict reminded us that hope is linked to a lived union with a people, and for each individual it can only be attained within this we. St. Paul, in the second reading, empathizes with Owen O'Kane's Trinity of Shame by asserting that in the Lord there is no shame. Psalm 91 this weekend beautifully encourages us to seek dwelling space in the shelter of the Lord. Deuteronomy exhorts us to imitate our God. Luke mystically captures the enduring prevalence of temptation towards addiction, abusive use of power, and our tendency to bait each other and God. Lent is a time to engage with the messiness of trauma and anxiety that peppers our lives. Lent resources us to be a pilgrim people of life and for life, making our way in confidence towards inner peace and new beginnings. Amen.